That was a tough season. Even thinking back to that season now, I get a little bit sweaty. It's a PTSD moment for me for sure.
The world is obsessed with fast-track success. It's easy to think that people become successful overnight. But let's face it, more often than not, what we see on social media is total BS. I'm here to look past the perception of perfect success and focus on life's detours, perceived mistakes, and even wrong choices, and understand the real road traveled up the career ladder. After all, we're all effing up. Tori Horton is a startup veteran with over 20 years of experience working to launch early-stage companies, some of which were funded by major venture capitalist firms, including Andreessen Horowitz, Northgate Capital, Lightspeed Venture, and more. In her early career, Tori was part of founding teams for the USC Center on Public Diplomacy, Zest Finance, and ampersand. She focused on helping each program launch and found market fit by delivering positive brand experiences that improved customer engagement, whether it was for online gaming, FinTech, or fandom communities. Tori went on to work at PayPal in product management and was responsible for women's economic empowerment as a member of the Global Social Innovation Team. Today, Tori is CEO of Reset Your Nest. In her role and through her outside passions, Tori focuses on revaluing the care economy, financially empowering women, and supporting families with limited time to become intentional about how they want to live. Tori, thank you for being here, willing to share your story.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for hosting me and thanks for asking. I think it's super important to take a minute and pause and think about what's going well and what would we improve. And this is a great opportunity to take a step back. So thanks for giving me this time to reflect.
Oh, of course. It looks like you went to BYU and you graduated with a BA in Humanities, English Lit, and Public Relations. What did you have in mind for your future when you selected your degree and as you were entering college?
Thinking back to where I was when I was 20, it was a totally different version of Tori. At the time, I really thought that my primary objective was going to be a great mom and stay at home and be an awesome PTA president and support my local community. I thought maybe after my kids were raised, it would be fun to do public relations for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My dad was in finance and worked for the church, so I saw the LDS Church as a great employer and a great community and something that I thought I would be engaged in for my entire adult life. So at that point, I was very focused on the vision that my community had set forward for me of what my expectations were to be a mom and support my community. And I ended up getting a humanities degree because I loved learning about the arts. And it was an opportunity for me to really just dive in and spend time reading and taking tests on the things that I thought were most interesting. When it comes to getting a broad undergrad experience, I think I absolutely nailed that, but I did it because I wasn't even thinking about a career after my education. I was really thinking about education for the joy of learning.
According to your LinkedIn, it looks like there's about a year between graduating from BYU and your first job as assistant director at University of Southern California.
Yeah.
What went on during that time? Would you consider that a break? What was going on for you?
So the other big thing that happened right at the end of BYU in my senior year, I got married mid-semester. For the record, I don't recommend getting married in the middle of a semester to anyone, but we were ready to get married and we picked the month of October for the pretty fall leaves in Utah, and that made for great wedding photos. And at the time, again, these are all decisions that in context made a lot of sense. So we got married and I graduated with my husband that summer, and we were living in my great-grandparents' basement. So rent was free, but we also didn't have jobs. He had an internship and I had done some work for BYU. And so I finished that up and was just waiting to see what our next step was going to be. And that summer, we realized realized that we didn't really have any firm reason to stay in Salt Lake other than we had family there. And there was this opportunity to look around and think, where else might we want to be? We started imagining ourselves in other locations. We considered DC. I've always thought New York looked super sexy and would be fun to try. And likewise, LA was on the list. He had a grandma in LA. And so we had some roots to hang on to if we wanted to hang our hat there. And the family had a second home in Palm Springs. Mind you, at this point, it's the middle of August. So no one in the family wanted to be in Palm Springs. That could be us. We could do that. We told our parents that we thought maybe we would try Palm Springs. We obviously called grandma and asked, and she was very supportive and happy to have us go stay in the little house that they had. It looked like an opportunity and it looked like a fresh start for us. It was hard because everyone we asked was not supportive of this decision. So we went to a Taco Bell in Salt Lake, and my husband and I were like trying to figure it out. And a vagabond homeless individual walked in and sat down next to us, and we ended up buying him lunch, and we were talking about our life decision because when I make decisions, I talk to everybody about them. And he sat down and was like, I travel by train. I've lived all over. If I could pick anywhere to live, I would live in LA. It's a great city. And like, it was all that I needed to catch on to. And he's like, yes. Someone thinks it's a good idea. We're doing it. It was really fun because we got to go back and say, we had a long live discussion with someone who travels around the country, and they've said that LA has their stamp of approval. So we're going to follow that.
And that person knows us intimately and knows this is the right choice.
Right? Looking for any reason to say that this was a verified decision that we were making, but it was what we wanted to do. And so we packed up all 12 things that we owned. It all fit in our Ford Taurus, including our broom. And we drove from Salt Lake City to Palm Springs and moved into a home without air conditioning in August. So it was like 109. So we spent a lot of time at the Borders bookstore and just started looking around for where could we plant our feet and find an inn in LA. We spent some time up visiting his grandma and started putting in applications. So that was how we got there. And then the first job that I was able to get just to buy food was at Ann Taylor. So I was a sales associate. I got really good at folding t-shirts and color organizing by hangers to put clothes away. And he got a job at the Ritz-Carlton parking and valet. So it was enough for us to have a paycheck and enough for us to get our foot in the door. We moved up to LA. Between that and the USC Center on Public Diplomacy, I knew that I wanted to get a master's degree. And again, for the love of learning, not because I thought that I was going to necessarily use it anytime soon, but I really liked school and I didn't feel like I was done learning. So I started looking for programs, and USC has a fantastic communication program. The Annenberg School is pretty well known, and they had a really great PR program. So I thought that I was going to go get a degree in PR at USC, but I needed to figure out a way to pay for it. And again, context and culture were everything in this decision. At that point, I didn't value my own potential earning worth enough to feel like I could invest in a degree because I didn't ever think I was going to get a job to use it, which looking back and knowing myself, I must have known better even then. I love working every bit as much as I loved school, but I was looking for a way to get it paid for or to get part of it paid for because I didn't think that I could just take out a loan and invest in myself to pay it back. So I found that not only did USC have a great school of communications, but they also had a program that if you worked for the school, they would help you pay for your education. This was like a lot of research just to figure out where I wanted to be. But I then finally had this, like, this is what I'm doing next. I'm going to go to USC and I'm going to get a degree, a master's degree. And to do that, I'm going to get a job there. So I started telling everyone in LA, all our friends, again, telling everyone I knew, I'm going to go to USC and get a master's degree and I need to get a job there. And when they'd ask, what are your plans? That was it. But I had a really big problem. I applied for a ton of jobs that were available on USC's campus, and I didn't even get a call back. Nobody was even looking at my resume, let alone interviewing me or moving this to the next step. Every night I would get on and I would look to see if a new job posts. And when a new job posted, I would put together my application, put my resume and send it in. and it was crickets.
How did that feel?
Terrible. Yeah. I mean, it was like, how do you knock in and how do you get into a place when there's not a door or even a window that you can see available?
And you had that clear vision. Like you knew without a doubt, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to make it happen, but it's not landing. I've been there myself. It's so frustrating. You're like, can everyone else see this? I've got this vision painted here. Come on.
Yes. And like, I thought that I just needed to know where I wanted to go. And then it would like, up until that point, that's how life had worked is I'd build a plan and then I would execute on that plan. So I had the plan and like, I couldn't get it to execute. And I'll never forget, we were over with some friends having dinner. We're all 20 nothing hanging out, but our friends were much more established. So they had finished their law degree from Michigan and were farther along. He was working at one of the major law firms. And he turned to me and he's like, Tori, you've been talking about USC as long as we've known you, 8 months. And he says, is this actually going to happen? And I remember the first thing I had was a wave of shame because I realized like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't happen? And have I been telling everybody something that just isn't ever going to happen for me? Like that's going to be devastating. And it was the first time that I then started exploring even maybe it won't happen. I don't know how to get in the door. I've been doing everything that I thought I was supposed to. I even like went to SC and like walked around to see if I could find anybody to talk to. Like very, very, if you don't know what you don't know, how might you do this? His wife was there and said, actually, when we were at Michigan, I got a job with the university through their temp agency. And then it ended up turning into a real job, a full-time job. Great, I can do that. Literally like the next day I went and found who are the temp agencies that USC uses. I found one of them. It took me about a month to get registered with the temp agency. I had to go take a typing test and do all those things. And it was just like this act of resilience where what's the next task in front of me and how can I do that task to get to the next thing? So I got on at the temp agency and then got a call to see if I wanted to go be an intern with the Annenberg School for Communication to help the business department with filing. And I was like, yes, I do. I would love to do that. And since I had been working at Ann Taylor, I showed up for my temp job in like my white collar button down shirt with a jacket and suit skirt, ready for them to see me. And I was super lucky. The team that worked with me there and that welcomed me into the Annenberg family were some of the most amazing individuals. I think they saw a kid who was hungry, and I think they saw a kid who didn't have a lot of life experience, but they were willing to take a risk on me because I had a lot of hustle. And so I worked at the business school for just a little bit. After I worked with them, an opening happened in this brand new program that was just barely getting up and running. It was a project of Dean Cowan's. They were starting a center for public diplomacy, and they were looking for an assistant to the director to help launch the center. I was asked to interview. Then they offered me a job. And it was one of those Cinderella magic moments where one person in the business office believed in me, made a connection. And then the next thing I knew, I was looking at a job application and an offer from the team. And it was exactly what I wanted. It was better than what I could have envisioned. And the great part was the program that I then got to launch ended up being the one that I got a master's degree in, public diplomacy. And it was this perfect blend of international relations and public relations and communication. It was just lots of grit and determination. And I think it helped that at that point, I didn't know better that sometimes things don't work out. I just kept thinking, if I keep showing up to this task, I'm going to figure out how to make it happen.
As you shared, there was heartache along the way as well. Like it wasn't easy.
No, it was a lot of work every day, just putting one foot in front of the other. It was also really that period where I applied to work with a temp agency and didn't yet have it, but started to have that doubt come in of maybe this actually isn't going to happen. Maybe I have told everybody and I need to revise the plan. That was a really shameful season for sure. I remember thinking everyone else knows what they're doing and is successful and I am not. And that was hard.
Oh yeah. Looking around you can be really hard at certain points in your career. It's so hard to not put yourself on the comparison shelf.
That's a very common thing to happen when you're 20. Did you feel like everybody else has it figured out and I don't know what I'm going to do? Or it's also that chicken and egg of I need experience in order to get a job, but I can't get a job until I have experience. How do you crack that egg? And it's not new and it's not unique, but it certainly feels personal at the time that it's happening and you're experiencing it.
You started your master's program. It looks like midway through the program, you switched jobs, still for the university.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
The director came to me with an idea that maybe I could help with a new program that was getting set up. So we had a lot of success setting up the Center on Public Diplomacy. And the MacArthur Foundation was funding a new project for the Network Center to really think about public diplomacy in virtual worlds. So we started looking at how people were communicating online, how people were using the internet and Facebook, which was just coming out, but also games in virtual worlds. I managed USC's presence in Second Life. I owned and operated the island as part of my day job, and they invited me to join and help launch this next thing. And my first instinct was no, because it wasn't on my life plan. And Josh pulled me aside and said, you're going to have a couple of options in life, and you have to think about what's right for you. Option A, you set out a life course and you march along that life course and get to that end destination because you're really clear on where you want to be and you're really clear on the steps that you need to get there. And if that's the plan that you want to do, let's talk about where that final destination is, and let's find people who are in that role and talk about the life choices that they made to get there so you can work your way backwards. If you're not super clear on what that end destination is, the other way to think about how to build a career is to look at the biggest opportunities that come your way and think, am I interested in this and would I like to try and learn something new? And that's what this option is. If you want to come and help us build something, you know that you're good at building. We know that we think that you're the right person to help us with this next project. So it was with that I decided to hand off the work that I'd been doing at CPD, but really focus on what was happening in these virtual and online spaces. That was such a fun experience. Also had a lot of learnings, like using Linden dollars to purchase a cow for Heifer International was not what the finance department at USC considered as funding, let alone knew how to allocate it in their accounting practices. I got called in and put in the hot seat a couple of times for the ways that we were spending money in virtual worlds, just because it was brand new. What do you mean you bought a cow with Linden dollars?
So you got in trouble.
Yeah. Working with institutions that are used to having policies and procedures set up to keep everybody safe and protected, I definitely came into conflict with that a lot and it was the first time that I really had to understand and appreciate that even though I was scrappiness wasn't always going to get me through. And I needed to figure out how to also grow up and help other people who wanted safety and security participate with us on the journey rather than become adversaries on the journey. So I ended up, after a couple of run-ins, developing a really good relationship with one of the women who was on the accounting side for USC. And as I would make decisions, rather than informing her after, I would call her up and we would do it together.
It looks like you ended that job, but your master's still went on for a bit of time. Why did the job end?
If you'll remember, in 2008, we went through a recession and we went through the housing crisis and stocks bottomed out for a little bit as well. And I was on a grant-funded project. Grant-funded projects work really well when they work. They work less
when they're
well
funded.
when they run out of funding. And they came back in 2008 and said, this is a project that we're just not going to be able to continue to fund. Also at that time, my husband had been working on a grant that was funded, and his funder came back and said, we would love to continue, but we also are going through a recession season and don't have the money, so your grant is closing. And in October, I had a baby. So it all happened as a perfect storm of like,
wow.
we had a new sense of responsibility, and our current jobs were ending and we didn't have a line of sight to the next job. I didn't yet have my master's degree finished. And we had family in Utah that had a place for us to go stay while we figured it out. So we said, look, worst case scenario, we'll move back to Utah. We'll take a beat and we'll come back to California, but we're going to run out of money if we stay here. So let's rip the Band-Aid, make the adult decision. That was a season where we just had to figure out how to bounce with the changes that were happening external to our individual performance. It was really lucky for me that the grant that came back gave us so much time to figure it out. So I knew it was coming. We had a lot of time to adjust. The program that I was in, I had great relationships. I still am in touch with my professors and my friends from that time, but I had some time to finish it, and everyone was really supportive of me doing it from wherever I wanted.
August 2010, you join Zest Finance. Tell me about how you landed that role.
I'd kept up my relations from LA with the intent that maybe I'd go back. And I had a friend who knew somebody, former chief technology officer of Google, who was starting a company with chief credit officer, former of Capital One. And they started a company called Zest Finance. At the time that I had my interviews with them and joined, I was employee 6, and they were just getting off the ground, and they were looking for cheap labor that was willing to work hard. And I think I had developed a relationship of like a reputation of somebody, someone who works hard, right? They called me and said, "This is out of the blue. Are you interested in doing customer service for us?" From Salt Lake, connected to an LA company. It was exactly what I had hoped, is get us a ticket back to LA one way or another. So I was thrilled, jumped at the opportunity. And I had a great conversation where they said, "You can work for whatever hours you want." I would put my son down for a nap at 12:50. I would start work at 1:00. The local high school kids would get off of school and they'd come to my house, and my son would wait in bed until the babysitter came and got him out at 2:00.
You spent about a year and a half in that role, and you took on a senior marketing manager role. How was that change?
I had a second baby during that time as well.
Wow.
And so took time, had a baby in August, and then came back in the new role in January. And what was nice about that break and maternity leave was it gave us a really great, like, the season was obviously changing for me, and it gave me a chance to have a conversation with the Zest finance team about how I was going to continue to grow. I had built enough traction and credibility that they were willing to let me move into an area that was not something I had been trained, but they were willing to take me in and let me learn with them. So I joined the marketing team and started reporting to one of my all-time favorite bosses as the years went on, and now continues to be one of my closest friends. But it didn't start out that way.
How did it start?
And I don't think I early on with Mike recognized just how important that relationship building time was going to be. And so I jumped in with a whole bunch of new ideas and things that we could do. One of the things I really wanted to do was go out and sit with customers and talk about their experience being a customer and needing small dollar credit at a critical point in their life. Some people have experienced that kind of research and see the value that comes from it, and other people have seen that research as non-productive. And Mike definitely fell in the second camp. And I walked in the door with such enthusiasm for the project that I had a hard time hearing no. And I just kept pitching and repitching the project. And he really wanted me to focus on other things. And between a new relationship and my unwillingness to listen to his priorities, it caused some challenges for us, for sure. If I could go back, I wish I could have told my former self to hold and to build a relationship first. Luckily, we both worked through it. Finally, I got to a place with Mike where he was like, "Look, I will give you a small, like very small budget. You can go out and do this research that you're super gung-ho about."
So the two of you laugh about that now?
Yeah. At one point, he even said, "Do you remember when I thought you were dumb?" I'm super grateful that, one, he gave me the opportunity, and two, he let me stick with him, because once I did that project, I was then in a much more teachable place too, to learn some of the things that he had to share.
8 months in that marketing director role, you moved on to Ampersand.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you make a change from Zest Finance?
I got a knock on the door from someone who said, "We're doing a new company up in the Bay Area. Do you want to come up and help build a company with us?" And I listened to the pitch. I listened to the opportunity. It was all the right things to make a move. And my family was in a good place to do it. You'll note up to this point, I've never actually successfully submitted a resume, gone through a formal application process, had an interview, or looked at more than one offer at a time. I just took the next thing that came up because the knock on the door came to me.
Some would argue that that's a better state to be in, though, than the application interview. Would you disagree?
I think it's a valuable experience to recognize that you're an asset to a company that you might go to and that you have options for those companies. That realization happened for me much later on because I took the opportunities that were given rather than seeking out the opportunity that was like the next career fit for me.
You have 2 kids at this point. You're now making another move to San Francisco. What new challenges did you experience in this role, in this new city, in this season of life?
Moving up to the Bay Area came with a bunch of challenges that I don't think I anticipated when we moved from LA. And part of it is the culture is really different in the Bay Area than it is in LA. And I hadn't considered that. I just thought California was going to be California. I moved into a smaller community, some might even say a little bit of a sleeper community, and joined a brand new team that was thinking about how to engage authors and the fans of their authors in conversation. And my job was to really think about engagement for the readers. And it was a brand new product. I learned so much during that season. Ultimately, at the end of it, we launched a product out to an author and her fans, and we thought we were going to have thousands of people sign up for the product, and we had dozens of people. And I recognized that it was going to pivot, and I needed more stability from a startup experience. So I left that company. At the same point, I personally was navigating a divorce. One of the things that happened moving up here and through all of this, my husband and I recognized that we got married really early and in a community and a religion that wasn't growing with us. So I left the LDS church all the way back when I was in Salt Lake. It had been 7 years at this point. And again, the path that we set out at BYU just was no longer the path that either of us were on. And so August of 2017, everything sort of came crashing in all at once. And those are some of the moments that like, I would never wish it on anyone. And everything that I had worked for the 15 years up to that point sort of didn't matter anymore. And I felt like I was having to start over. It was the first time that I really had to ask, what do I want? And that was a scary moment. Because I didn't know, Yeah. I've got 2 kids. I am trying to figure out how to make ends meet, not sure where I want to be working, and not sure whether or not I was in a relationship that was going to continue. And that was a tough season. This is called effing up. And like, that's my big effing up. Like it was really hard. Even thinking back to that season now, I get a little bit sweaty and like, it's a PTSD moment for me for sure, because it wasn't like one thing fell apart. It all fell apart all at once. As again, I'm finding out, not that uncommon when I talk to friends and they're like, yeah, things fall apart and everything falls apart sometimes because you need that awakening of the path I'm on isn't working and I need to reset. But that was a big season for me of just trying to figure out where did I want to go and then taking really small steps to get there.
And I have to assume it also hit hard because you had been running on a hamster wheel for so long. Have to provide, have to do, going to do this, have a dream, have a vision, do. And now it's like, okay, yes, I have to do that still, but we had made so much progress. I had gotten somewhere and it just feels like, well, here we go again, the hamster wheel.
Yeah, and that's such an insightful note. And that was exactly, I got ripped out of the hamster wheel that I was on. And I had to come to terms also with the fact that like, I had been on a hamster wheel. Like I wasn't getting any closer to these real life goals that I had. I was just doing the next thing that was in front of me for a lot of days in a row. So some of the things that I came to for myself, I loved startups. I needed a season of life that wasn't a startup. I needed a bigger company. I needed benefits. I needed to feel like I was investing in a 401k because I wanted to be an adult and, like have a future and know how I was financially going to care for myself in that future. And part of why I think talking about these moments is so important is because if you don't, it's really easy to feel like I've messed up. And I did. I should have seen some of these signs earlier, and I take full ownership for my role in it while recognizing sometimes things don't work out the way that you wanted them to. And it doesn't all have to be personal. It can also be like land where you are, pick up the pieces, look around, talk to people, share your experience, figure out how to get out from under the shame of feeling like it's on you so that you can then start making steps towards what's next.
It's almost as if we had this reality that at some point your life is going to hit a shit fan. Just be prepared for it. Yes, you wouldn't know when, you wouldn't know what, but you would know it's coming. You'd be like, oh, this is the thing. This is normal. But instead, we paint it like it's all going to be perfect. And oh gosh, you hit this rough season. Yeah, we all do. It's just not perfectly synchronized.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's been interesting now that I'm on the post side of this and able to talk about it, the number of amazing, incredible, thoughtful, productive, successful people that I speak to who will call me up and be like, my life just hit the fan and I didn't see it coming. Could you give me some thoughts or help? I love that there's a silver lining even to the worst experiences in our life, that maybe there are things that we learn, or even just to be a reference of, yes, these things happen and you're not the only one who's experienced it. Those are the things that I think can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's important to tell the stories so the isolation periods can get better.
Yeah. So exactly to that, I remember there was a 4-month period where I felt super alone, especially because my marriage and this career that I had been building all ended all at once. I truly was alone. I had gone from being in an office, having somebody at home when I got home at the end of the day, that it was me and it was these 2 amazing kids that I was trying to be on for when we were all home together. When they were at school, when they left, it was just me. Those were really tough moments. I pulled out my journal, and my son at the time was 8. One night we were sitting over dinner and I said, guys, let's all share a gratitude moment. Let's talk about what's going well. And he looked at me and he says, Mom, why are we always talking about what we're grateful for? Sometimes things are hard. And I realized maybe I was even overextending with the kids. I just didn't want them to experience the hardness of the time. But behind the scenes, it was really tough. Yeah. And behind the scenes, there were days when it was hard to get out of bed. I closed up, and I'm so lucky that I have friends in a community that came for me in that moment. But most of it was me alone with my thoughts, trying to figure out how I was going to piece myself back together and put on a professional front to go get that next job and do something I had never done before, which is apply for jobs and go through an interview process to get one. I worked with a career coach. I'd meet with her once a week. And that was my accountability hour to make sure that I was making steps every single week just to continue to get myself in a place where I could be hired. And I showed up to her really broken. I don't think I'm good at anything. I don't even know what job I would do next. And she spent a lot of time really letting me rework with her what my resume had been up to that point, and finding opportunities to tell the successful moments so that I could, in that lowest hour, remember who I was in a better season. And likewise, being in a better season now, it's much easier to talk about what it was like to be in a lower season. I think there's value both ways.
Did that experience working with the coach ultimately help you to find the role at PayPal?
Yeah. I would come back to her with jobs and she'd go, I think this is a lower job than what you should be applying for. Let's keep looking. And then she'd come back to me with jobs and say, I think this is a better fit. Ultimately, even at PayPal, I learned that relationships are really key to jobs. And I had somebody who introduced me to a hiring manager who had a role that was a good fit. I joined that team. It was a little bit of my application. It was a little bit of the right person being a sponsor for me at a really key point. And that sponsor is someone I'm incredibly grateful for.
Hmm. And what challenges did you face at PayPal? To your point, you'd loved the startup dynamic, the smaller size, and PayPal was much more established by that time.
Yeah, PayPal was the exact polar opposite in many ways from the startup life to a global experience where I had to really dig in and learn and focus was making sure that I was responding to my team, I was responding to my director, and I was making sure that I was also going deep and not just broad while I was at PayPal.
And so then that brings us to today. You are CEO at Reset Your Nest. Talk to me a little bit about the company and what you do.
I missed the startup energy of having great ideas or terrible ideas, but like being able to operate really quickly. And I really wanted to get back to seeing impact in an everyday experience and like impacting someone else personally. Those were things that at a large organization, you get farther and farther away from. I was talking with my really great high school friend who had gone through her own season back in 2020. She needed more financial stability. And what she decided to do was start a company that was doing home organizing. In January of 2020, a home organizing business sounds like a really great idea. By March of 2020, it sounds like a much less great idea to go into other people's homes.
Yeah.
And I called her up and said, I don't think this business is going to be successful for the next couple of years. You might just want to hang up your sign and come back to this idea. And she said, look, this is what I'm good at. It's what I want to do. I'm passionate about it. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm so happy that I was so wrong about that. People called off the hook to say we are living at home, we are working at home, we are drowning under ourselves. Our homes were never set up or organized to have all of us here all the time. Can you please come in and save us from ourselves? She went profitable really quickly and she built a really strong following. And she had hit a point about midway through last year where she realized that as a single sole owner, she had grown to the extent that she was going to be able to. And either she needed to stop or she needed to bring on someone else to help her really think about what growth looks like after a single operator. And as we talked, I realized that the same things that were exciting to her, which were helping more women have access to a different kind of paycheck, helping more women be able to go out and do the things that they were good at and be rewarded for it, and building more financial stability, were the same conversations I was interested in having. And actually, there's a really important conversation, I think, to have at a national level about how we value domestic labor. It's work that all of us do. And yet the way that our systems are set up, we don't get compensated or recognized or financially rewarded for doing that work. And so she's been so generous to let me join Reset Your Nest with the vision to grow and to marry this mission of supporting organizers and families in this experience.
What were your thoughts considering yourself in the C-suite? Did imposter syndrome come up for you?
I have felt imposter syndrome in a lot of different jobs along the way. I've also jumped into things that I didn't know how it ended and been okay with figuring it out along the way. I think what I felt most with Reset Your Nest and taking on a C-suite position is we're still a really young team. So C-suite is only as big or small as you make it. I've got a real rounded sense of what it means to be the CEO of a startup company, for starters. And second, when it comes to, was I ready to lead a team and was I ready to step into a role that had more responsibility? I've wanted it for a while. And if anything, I raised my hand at PayPal and it got old. Like it wasn't in the cards for me there. And it was an experience that I knew that I wanted. And so it's one of those moments where I actively said, if this is the experience that I want, where else do I need to grow in order to find these experiences? Where I feel the most anxiety right now is really around making sure, again, that I'm accountable to this entire team and that I'm setting us up with a plan that's going to be successful. These are where those early experiences back from Zest Finance of how do you test and learn and how do you iterate in and how do you not put everything in one basket and bet the company, but take small decisions to help validate and make sure that you're getting where you want to go are really, really important. When we start with what's the mission of the company and make our decisions through that lens, a lot of the next set of decisions become really clear.
I'd like to go back to the very beginning and think about how you were getting a degree because it was interesting and you wanted to be well-read, my words, going to provide for family in the way of staying home. And fast forward, I don't want to age you, but a few years, that's not been your story. What do you make of that now?
It's not what I set out to do, and yet I don't think it's that far from where I started. What I'm talking about is how do we value domestic labor and how do we really see the work that happens in a home? And ultimately, why I didn't take that homemaker path to begin with is because I wanted more economic compensation for the work that I was doing. So in some ways, it feels a little bit of a 360. It's not what I set out to do, but it's not far from it.
How do you define success?
I think success is building really strong relationships and caring about the people that are around you, whether it's at home or at work, doing things that you're proud of and feeling like you are doing things that matter at the end of the day.
Dream job as a child?
Oh, I wanted to work on the New York Stock Exchange. I had no idea what it meant, but the idea of a briefcase in downtown Manhattan was very alluring to me. Mostly it was like the farthest thing from anything that anyone else was imagining for me at that time.
What's your path not taken?
A school teacher.
If you could switch jobs with anyone, what job would it be?
I'm doing exactly the job I want to be doing right now. I don't think I could have always said that. I don't know if I'll always be able to say that, but I wake up doing exactly what I want to be doing right now. I'm really lucky.
Remote or in-person work?
Remote. I love seeing people in person, but right now I'm working with a team that's in another state than where I'm currently located, and that we're able to do this is fantastic. I like the flexibility. Remote gives you all the options. In person only is limiting.
Item on your desk that you cannot live without?
My caffeine, whether it's a cup of coffee or tea, it's always here.
Word that drives you crazy?
Oh, do I have to say this one? Moist. It's just terrible. Yeah. I don't think I'm alone in this one either.
What actor would you have play you in a movie?
Let's go with Sandra Bullock, because who doesn't like Sandy?
What company on your resume has turned the most heads or made you most attractive as a candidate?
I think PayPal is a known brand, and the amount of validity that it gave me, just having a known brand on my resume, has been nice.
I'd like for you to label 3 of your jobs. Love, ultimate fun, skip it.
Love, I have to go with Reset Your Nest. Ultimate fun was absolutely when I worked with the Network Culture Project. I got paid to play video games. So ultimate fun for sure. And then skip it, the early jobs, like working at the fried chicken place, doing the graveyard shift, doing all the dishes. Those were the early jobs. And those were the really gritty jobs where you just show up and think, I'm building character in this moment. And I'm really excited for this paycheck. But a lot of those jobs are skipping.
If you could go back and speak to your 20-something-year-old self, what advice would you share?
It's okay if you don't have it figured out, and don't be afraid to take the biggest opportunity that comes and know that you're going to figure it out when you get there. Also, you don't know the end of this story is a really good reminder to a 20-year-old.
Tori, thank you so much for opening up. It's fantastic to hear a story and to help normalize the journey. Effing up is a phase and a time, and obviously success is still achievable. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm so glad for the chance. I know that there are those early individuals who are having those effing up moments, but I also hope for those who are a little bit later along in the season where you feel like you should have your life and your career figured out, that it still happens, this is for them.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Effing Up. I'm your host, Deanne Reiner. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe on the platform you use to listen to podcasts. Share Effing Up with others, post about it on social media, and/or leave a rating and review. Until next time, count your perceived failures as part of your path to success. After all, we're all effing up.